Hi, everybody. Just welcome to the Silver Psyop. I'd like to introduce my guest. His name is Leland Judsyn. He's an avid researcher, and he's got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about here with us tonight. And I'd also like to say hello to some of his followers that are actually watching live on Facebook and through another avenue there. So, hey, Leland, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's an absolute pleasure, man. I can't wait to get into some of this stuff. So I guess, maybe you could just start us off a little bit by telling us kind of what your motivation is, your inspiration, and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Yeah, I got some slides ready for today, and I could put those up while I talk. I don't know if you want to put me on full screen maybe, or it's up to you.
Yeah, I had you on full screen. I'm recording my feed, so right now when you changed your feed to it went to now I got double feed coming through.
Oh, okay, so maybe I should switch to this.
Yeah, let's just see that, and then you can show us all of your slides like that, and then they don't have to look at me twice.
All right, cool. All right, so I'll open up the slides here, and I guess maybe to do the slides, I'll do them on a full screen window on this.
Yeah, that looks great because we can see you then as well.
All right.
Perfect.
Okay, so here, let's do this.
So what are we going to start with here?
Yeah, this is basically how I got into it all. It was my grandma is from Ukraine, and this is a picture of me with my two grandparents. And you can see that my grandma is a little bit different looking than most people, and she was actually a mystic when she was living in Ukraine. And she actually got sentenced to death for doing it, and that's how she ended up coming over to Canada.
Oh my God, wow.
Yeah. So my grandpa ended up helping her escape Ukraine, and my family moved to Canada. So that's basically where I think a little bit of this started with me, is that I already had it in my genes right from the beginning to be involved in this sort of paranormal stuff. Yeah, and then after my grandma actually didn't live very much longer after that picture. She died really young, and I guess shortly after that I had an encounter with light beings, and they sort of look like the beings in this picture here.
Okay.
And they gave me a coin, and then that coin is this one here, and this picture this is the Mexico coat of arms.
Yeah.
And I ended up finding out that basically when the light beings gave me this coin, I decided to try to research ancient mysteries and find out why they gave me this coin, and if it was some sort of clue to what I was supposed to do, because they never actually told me anything. They just gave me the coin, and I was like, well,
weird.
It's not a whole lot I could go on from that, right?
Yeah.
So I ended up doing some research into the coin. You can see here that the American version, the First Nations people used, and I guess the Aztecs were using, it seemed very similar to the places you find all over in like Mesopotamia, Asia, India, and even in Africa, like the Egyptians were using it.
Yep.
So that was my first big clue that I was on to the right track, is finding out about this sacred tree information. I was kind of surprised at how dominating this sacred tree tradition is all over the world, right?
Yeah, for sure. It really is in even almost every religion, as well as the ancient, right? Like it's in everything for sure. Anything that's really neat, man. I really appreciate you showing us that stuff.
Yeah, I'm planning on doing a whole episode on my podcast one day about the sacred tree, so I won't get into too much about it on this because I guess our time is a little bit limited for what we all want to talk about. But
yeah.
No, the other thing I realized too is I went to the ROM, the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto, for people that aren't familiar with the ROM acronym. And they had the Mesopotamian collection at the museum.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going through it, and I was like, man, I keep seeing this sacred tree on a lot of their tablets. And I noticed that they had the winged disc symbol on it. Maybe I should move myself a little bit. So basically what I found out at the museum was that this ancient symbol of the winged disc on top of the sacred tree is still being used today by the Zoroastrians that are living in Iran. And they called him Ahura Mazda. And then I found out with a little bit more digging that this Ahura Mazda guy happens to be the secret meeting to Freemasonry. And I knew
Oh, wow.
yeah, so I knew that Freemasonry was really big into the ancient mystery stuff. So I was like, man, isn't it weird that the coin that the light beings gave me happened to relate to what the Freemasons are researching too? So that was pretty much after I found this stuff out at the museum. I decided to go up north and start exploring to see if I could find any evidence of the Phoenicians or any other ancient cultures using this winged disc up north.
Mm.
Yeah, and then some people were arguing with me a bit too that Albert Pike really didn't know what he was talking about when it came to the Freemasons and this Ahura Mazda stuff, and that he really wasn't that high up of a member. And then I happened to discover while I was watching some videos that you probably heard about it, how the Washington, D.C. layout looks like an upside down, like a pentagram.
Yeah, and then the square and compass is incorporated and all that stuff.
Yeah. So it's got this really wild design, and I happened to find out that not only is it the pentagram, but it also makes a giant pyramid. Mm. It's basically like Kennedy's Space Center there, or the White House, Albert Pike statue. And then I noticed that there was a Masonic building that happened to be right in the eye of this pyramid. I was like, well, what's the big deal with this Masonic building? And it turned out to be that's where they put Albert Pike's body. They entombed him there. And it's Freemasons' headquarters. So I was like, how can anyone argue with me that Albert Pike really didn't know what he was talking about if he was placed there, right? Like,
oh, God, yeah. You don't get a statue in Washington, D.C. and a tomb in the Freemason headquarters without meaning something to them or having some involvement. No doubt, man. That's crazy.
Yeah. No, I think the main reason that the Freemasons want to disassociate themselves with being involved with Albert Pike's work is because he was a Confederate general, and the focus of his writing was mainly about the Aryan race and how he thinks the Aryan race played a big part in all these ancient mysteries. So right there with all the stuff that happened in World War II and with the Nazis, like disassociating yourself with that isn't really that hard to believe, right?
No kidding. And actually, that's one of the most misunderstood things being associated with the Nazis as well, is that, the Aryan race doesn't mean necessarily that you're a white guy, right? Like they, they cross the Asian continent and they're all over the place. So it was just a misconception, I believe, totally. But at the same time, it's really cool that, you've been able to dig this stuff up. So,
yeah. And the other wild part, too, is that Albert Pike in his book that I showed on the previous slide there, this book is loaded with information talking about the light beings. I was like, isn't that wild that Albert Pike knew all about the light beings, too, and they were the ones that gave me the coin to get me into this mystery. So, yeah. So there was another connection there. People aren't sure that it's something, but to me, I thought it was a little bit beyond coincidence.
Well, and the fact, too, that even it's on currency. It's something that these same secret societies use to manipulate and control every population on Earth now. So it's really, really neat. Yeah, that it harkens back to the ancient times as well. So there's some serious clues going on here. So yeah, continue on. Let's hear it.
Sure. So the rest of my slides, what I got ready was figured since we were thinking about going out north in the spring and checking out the Draco Stonehenge, I would just go over the whole tour about everything that we can see along the way.
Perfect.
Right. So basically the area that we're from is southern Ontario. And this road goes from Toronto. And then basically the path takes us up through Barrie. I don't know if anyone's gone to Canada's Wonderland in Toronto. They know that the highway, 400, that goes up past Canada's Wonderland?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, there it is there. So yeah, it's not really that hard direction-wise to even find the place up north. You just take that highway 400, continue it past Canada's Wonderland, and eventually you come to a fork in the road at Barrie. And then in Barrie, you're basically going to take Highway 11 the rest of the way.
Yep.
And the nice part of it, too, is I guess up north, they don't have a lot of major highways. So Highway 11, you can pretty much take it the whole way.
Yeah, it's beautiful, too. It's scenic. If you go, depending on what time of year you're heading up, I mean, when I go up, it probably won't be that nice in the spring, right? But most other times, it's fairly picturesque.
Yeah. Now, just to give people an idea about how far away it is, so I guess it's about 700 kilometers north of Toronto or so. I guess that would include the distance to drive to my city, but
Well, yeah, and any stopping, right? You're adding
yeah.
kilometers on any time you're driving around any town.
Yeah, so partway along the trip, there's this one town here called Temagami, I think it is. Not really sure I'm pronouncing that one right,
Yeah,
but
Temagami, yep.
yeah. So that Temagami place has what is it, like a giant fire tower?
Yes, it's like a lot of hunters use that area. There's not a lot of population there, but yeah, they have basically the last fire tower on the way up to Timmins or something
Yeah.
like that.
No, it's nice because they opened this fire tower up as a tourist destination. So you're allowed to donate a couple bucks and climb to the top of the tower.
Hmm.
And it's cool because you can see just how like huge all the wilderness is around this area. And it's a good spot to stop and get yourself ready for the extra heights for climbing the mountain later too.
Yeah, okay.
So it's like if you have trouble making it to the top of the fire tower, it's a good warm up for the mountain.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right, so next I put together another slide here, and this is basically the whole area that I did all my research for the Solomon's Mine. And everything that it's got here is like a UFO base up at the top, the Arctic watershed mark, the swastika gold town, the gold mine memorials, the Draco Stonehenge, the Cheminis Lodge, and the Holy Mount Cauldron, or the offering table at the shamanic spot.
Hmm.
So I guess the first slide I got ready is we'll just start from the top. There is the UFO base. I don't know, like have you heard these stories from the Cold War area where UFOs were seen near missile bases and stuff?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So that's what this base up here, up north, had the same thing going on, where they had this. This is actually a picture I took of the base. You can see that it's like really run down now, but back during the Cold War era, it was at its peak, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, they were worried that the Russians were coming over the North Pole, right? So we were the line of defense, so to speak.
Yeah. No, it's pretty wild that like you can go into some of the buildings. I guess technically you're not allowed unless you're like going to be buying real estate in the area. A lot of that real estate's still for sale, so I guess you could go there and say that you were looking to buy the place, and that's why you're there looking.
Yeah.
Not that you're up there looking for the secrets of King Solomon's gold mine or something.
Yeah.
That'll probably get you into trouble if you say
Yeah,
that.
no doubt. Yeah, the men in black might show up.
No, so what I did is I took the slide of this station, the Raymore base, and just to show people that there was actually official UFO reports filed with the Blue Book archive, and it talks all about how this Raymore base was involved with UFO encounters.
Mm, that's
And
awesome.
yeah, it's weird too. I was thinking about it. It's like was it Zachariah Sitchin's work? How he always talks about the ancient Anunnaki being involved with gold and stuff. So
Yep.
it's like. Here we got a missile defense system guarding gold mines, and it's being plagued by UFOs. So it's like maybe that's the Anunnaki still checking on this gold situation, right?
Yeah, who knows? You never know.
So that could be part of the mystery. So I
That's
included
cool.
it in the tour too.
Nice. Yeah, for sure. That's totally valid, I would think.
All right, the next place on the route is the Arctic watershed. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before. Or...
No, I'm not familiar with the term or what it
Yeah,
is.
it's some people that are into the flat Earth research might like the watershed either to prove or disprove their theories, I guess, because it's one spot on the North American continent where all the water flows in opposite directions. Like if you go north of it, all the water is going to flow north, and if you go south, then all the water is going to flow south from there. So it's basically the geographical high point of the continent, right?
I see. Yeah.
So I was thinking that isn't that neat that all this gold was here, and it's right close to like this geographic anomaly where it's this certain high point. And
Yeah.
it reminded me of sluicing. Like if you have you ever used a gold sluice before? How it's basically like a metal tray that gold runs down, and you try to collect the gold along the way. And it seems like a lot of the gold is right at the top of it, but some of it makes it to the bottom. So that's what I was wondering, is maybe the whole continent is working like a giant sleuth. And that's why we find so much of the gold here, is because it's near the top.
Well, and I mean that actually, there's a lot other people who suggest similar theories even in the Andes and in Peru because of the terracing system, right? They figure that if on a massive scale, if you have like a 5,000-foot terrace that's all, nicely terraced off, if you were dumping thousands of gallons, the ripples would act exactly like a gold sluice.
Yeah.
On a massive scale, right? So, I mean, that's interesting that it's like that there.
No, and I didn't think when I was taking this picture, the way I was standing next to that bear didn't look too good. Jeez. Well, I guess I'll get on to the next slide. All right, so here we got a place along the way, too, after you visit the watershed. It's called the Swastika Gold Town. And basically the information I found out about this place, here's the sign there, is that this place was called this even before like World War II and stuff, and like the early 1900s, or I guess late 1800s is when it got its name. And I was looking at the different Aryan connections to this spot, and I was like, man, isn't it weird that the town is called Swastika? It's like another connection that these Proto-Iranians or whatever were here, the Mesopotamians, because we got some of their stuff right here next to the gold mine. Officially, the town was asked to change its name, but they didn't like the idea because they thought that it had a lot of history besides the World War II stuff. So
yeah, that's interesting.
There's even a street in Ontario, like southern Ontario, that has the same name, and it's been all over the news where people are debating whether or not they should change the name.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes me wonder about that, though. Is like, how did you move on a street called Swastika and then complain about it after? It's
no doubt.
It's like people that buy a house next to the dump and then complain that it smells.
Yeah, exactly, for sure, right? There's common sense that should be used, I would think.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, and I wonder if that's all part of that disinformation, right? Because they don't want people digging into the history of the swastika, because they find out exactly, like they go down that rabbit hole and they're like, holy crap, well, this doesn't mean anything what I thought it meant. And why would all of a sudden the world's most evil person in propaganda history happens to use it as his symbol, right?
Yeah. No, I can't believe how that worked out. It's like, geez, I really wish Hitler would have chose a different symbol, right? Yeah.
Well, exactly, right? But he wasn't a stupid person by any means. He was evil, but he was not stupid.
Yeah, so, he was like the evil genius is a lot of term that people should be associating with Hitler, but some people seem to call him dumb, but I don't think he was dumb.
No, I mean, obviously he made some critical errors and whatnot, strategically and all that, but at the same time, they had massive amounts of resources going into researching this kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah. Now, this is another slide from the road along the way, and you can see that it talks about the Larder Lake. That's the lake that the Draco Stonehenge is on. The gold rush of 1906, and it was discovered gold at Swastika and Kirkland Lake. It's basically like a 12-mile stretch all along this road that's like just gold everywhere.
Yeah, and it's like, it's vein gold up there too, right? It's not like they're not picking it off the ground.
No, there's definitely a lot of really solid rock surrounding the veins, so the mining definitely isn't an easy operation there. All right, so that was the gold mine memorial, Swastika. Let's see what else I got next. Oh yeah, here's some of the other miners' memorials. Like if you're into gold mining and stuff, it's like people that are into those gold panning shows. You're definitely going to find a lot of the history about Canadian gold mines that really should be taught everywhere. But it seems weird that people in Canada don't know that we have a lot of gold in Northern Ontario, right?
Mm.
And then I was checking because I've got a friend that works in the mines up there, and he was telling me that the gold is actually the best in the world. And I was like, there's no way I could believe that. Like Alaska is supposed to be the best, California is supposed to be the best, and all this. But then I checked to see if he was telling the truth, and I found charts that showed the Kirkland Lake gold here is ranked number 2 in the whole world. So I was like, man, if King Solomon's gold mine had to be in a location with the best gold, how come people aren't checking the second best gold in the whole world?
Mm-hmm. Well, and even too, I mean, if King Solomon really was everywhere, then King Solomon gold mines, it might not even only be one site, right? It could be. Yeah. You never know. Like it could be. And that could be also what's like kind of confusing in the research as well, is that,
No, that's for sure, because I talked to a few people that like to research other stuff in America, and there's a guy who's researching a spot in New Canaan. It's basically the east coast of the States. And he found a lot of gold mines there, and he thought they were connected to King Solomon. And I had another guest on the Magi show named Heather Arnold, and she does research about giants in Aruba. And it turns out that Aruba had the gold mines going there too. So it's like almost everywhere you find these red-haired giants, you find the gold mines there.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really cool, and this is kind of why I like talking about this stuff on because my channel is obviously about precious metals and ancient history, kind of. So this is the two are constantly intertwining, which is kind of why I started to love them both so much.
Yeah, it's a good. I guess they connect really well together.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and then that same connection must be why today's investors or whoever, like the rich people, could covet it so much, right? Like, so what is it that's really going on with this gold? That's cool.
Yeah, and then I found a picture that just gives like a visualize how big this ore body is under the ground. And they put down here the scale of the CN Tower.
Yeah.
So it's like you can see it's like in some cases like triple the depth of the CN Tower. So it's like it's definitely a huge amount of gold. It's not some small little operation they got going there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and the other thing I was checking too is like if King Solomon's mine was really here, how the heck did he ship it all the way back to the Middle East, right? Like I was thinking there's no way that there's a water highway that's going to take you all the way from way up in northern Ontario all the way back to the Middle East. And then when I started checking the rivers, lo and behold, I found out that the Ottawa River goes all the way up to that site.
Yeah.
So it's like, for people that don't know Canadian geography, it's like the Ottawa River is a massive river system. It's not like a little creek or something. And it goes right into the St. Lawrence, and then the St. Lawrence would take you to the ocean. So really, if they wanted to ship King Solomon's gold from this location, they could have done it all by boat. They wouldn't have had to carry it or by land or anything.
Yeah, so, it was a lot more accessible than people ever would have known. Like those rivers are the reasons that they were able to penetrate so far into the land.
Yeah.
Or at least what we know as the early explorers, as far as like Champlain, I think, is the one who mapped most of that back in the day. But yeah, it's absolutely amazing that, and it's the same. Another similarity with a lot of these other gold mine sites is that the accessibility is there, right?
Yeah. No, they weren't really going to be able to carry it on like in wagons or anything in the old days because they didn't have roads, right? So really, water was the only way they could do it. Yeah, I was just gonna say too. Some of the people I was talking to are debating whether or not the river system could even be that old. I found out that a lot of the rivers that are on the North American continent, maybe the world, are usually laying across the seismic points. So the reason that these rivers formed is because of the earthquake activity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all a fault line. The entire Ottawa River runs along fault line.
Yeah, so people that are thinking that this river system couldn't be that old, well, it's as old as the fault line is. So that's pretty damn old, I think.
That's right. The fault line was definitely there before the glaciers rolled over it. So.
Yeah. All right, and here's just some of the information. Just giving some of the background about who King Solomon was and why I think this was his mine. Well, it's basically saying here, I'll see if I can make it a little bigger, is that King Solomon accumulated, almost 40,000 pounds of gold. And that's a hell of a lot of gold for the ancient times, especially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Masons, like Freemasons, they were always involved in Solomon's temple. So I was thinking I was going to find more clues to the Freemasons here at this site, if that's really true. And I'll get to that a little bit later. And what was the last thing? Oh, yeah, here it says that King Solomon's gold mine was also linked to the Phoenicians. I guess I should move myself over. So the Phoenicians were those guys, basically the ancient Mesopotamians that were able to ship stuff because they had the ships to do it. Huh?
That's wild.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people are still debating like online if King Solomon even existed, but there's like more and more and more evidence that keeps growing that he did. But I guess there's always still the chance that he was just based on other characters. But
yeah, I would say that would be the most likely thing, is probably just misidentification and other names. Every culture that has gone through there has probably called him something else.
Yeah. Now, I think it's only a matter of time. Like, if this King Solomon's gold mine turns out to be true, maybe this will be the spot where we actually find evidence to prove if King Solomon existed once.
Wouldn't that be something to find some crazy artifact up there one day? That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
And it's totally in the realm of possibility.
Well, that's the nice part about exploring up here up north. Like the worst part of it is that it's really hostile territory. Like there's tons of mosquitoes, black flies, everything, and it's like if you're not prepared, this is probably one of the worst places you could go to explore.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's lots of people that wanted to find King Solomon's gold mine, but didn't come up here looking for it just because it's so awful. Not to make fun of the place where people live. Like, I bought a house up here too, so I guess I'd be one of the same people I'd be making fun of.
Kirkland Lake tourism isn't going to be calling us anytime soon.
No, to be fair, the place is actually really beautiful for like brief periods in time when the bug season is over.
Yeah, from about July on, it becomes a lot more bearable, right? It's just early spring where the bugs truly, truly will eat you alive.
I put a few of the other locations, I guess, on the map in case anyone's traveling up here. They got an airport right there, but it's a small airport, so you're going to have to take a smaller plane from Toronto. You can't just fly there on like a 747 or something. And then they got the bus and taxis and car rental places right there in the town, so if you're going to fly up there, you can get a vehicle access pretty easily. And it's nice. The taxi will actually take you all the way to any of these spots, even though it's a bit pricey if you ride for an hour or so. But it's definitely an option if you're going there on foot and you don't want to drive. You can still pull it off.
Yeah.
And then, what is it? Yeah, the next spot over, there's a beach. So if anyone happens to be coming up north to explore and their family isn't going to be into checking out the Draco, Stonehenge, or the mountain and stuff, there's still a beach that you can drop your family off and they can enjoy the day while you go do other stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And then, here's the next one I got on here is Dublin Bay. And this was kind of a strange part of my research. I don't know what to make of it, but you know how the Stonehenge in England is basically across the English Channel from Dublin?
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe I should look at the map of this place here, since we have a place called Dublin, and see if it correlates at all to the general location of where the Stonehenge is here. And then when I put the two maps together, it's like, lo and behold, it's like Dublin is basically the English Channel here is the same shape as Larder Lake. Wow. I was like, but it's on a way different scale. Like the English Channel's huge, where Larder Lake is only about 20 kilometers, but still, it's weird that the formations of the land and where they put Dublin and everything seems to match.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know what to make of it, but the only difference really is you can see here on the English version, it's like when you're at Dublin and you want to get to Stonehenge, you have to go down south. And then on our version, it's like right directly across from it. So I was like, okay, that's not really the same destination, like the same angle. So maybe one day in the future we'll have to check down here, like where the English Stonehenge would be, to see if there's any other relics. Because there's 14 other major sites that the academics have noted that no one's really explored yet. So maybe one of the 14 sites happens to correlate with that.
That would be really, really interesting to find out.
Yeah, so maybe in the future I'm going to get another canoe and try exploring. I actually got a canoe up there for already, and it got stolen on me, so I'll have to get another.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other cool thing, too, is like I checked Dublin in England and then mapped where our Stonehenge was to see if there was any correlation. And it turns out in England there is another Stonehenge exactly where it was correlating to, except it's a man-made one back from like the 60s or 70s, where some rich guy built a man-made one to do tours or something like that.
Wow.
So I don't know if he had like Freemason knowledge. Maybe when he built it in the spot that would correlate with it, or it just happened to be a coincidence. I don't know.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, and that one's called the Druids Temple, if anyone wants to look up the Druids Temple later.
That is fascinating, actually, because I wonder, too, because, yeah, Stonehenge there's Woodhenge as well, which is not far from the Stonehenge in England. So that's cool.
Oh, yeah, that Woodhenge. Yeah, that reminds me about something we're going to talk about later in the slides. All right, the next thing on the lake, you can see comes up to the Draco Stonehenge. Marked it there. It's basically right on the shore of Lauder Lake. And here's some of the pictures that I took on this would be the first trip I took up there. You can see that even the rock has a little bit of smiling faces built into it, and there's balancing stones that the people who built it put underneath to make sure they're propped up right at the perfect angles.
Mm-hmm.
And the blocks are massive. But the problem is, like you can see, especially in this picture, is the Draco Stonehenge keeps going past these rocks, and the whole area past it is just totally overgrown with trees.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't even realize that those other stones were part of it until I flew the drone over and started to see it from above. Yes, so there's a picture that I got from above of what the Draco Stonehenge looks like with the drone.
You're welcome.
And basically what it was is there was about 14 boulders, and there's 14 major stars in the Draco constellation. And the general shape seems to match, but like if we go back up in the spring, I want to get a more accurate measurement done so we can like pinpoint exactly where each one of these boulders was.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I don't know if you can see, and like if I zoom in, there's little orange markers that I put on all the rocks so that I could try to see them from above, but even these orange markers weren't big enough. So maybe when we go up on the next trip, we'll have to get something bigger and orange. I don't know, like a big bed sheet or something.
Yeah, for sure. Something that they're much more identifiable. Maybe even get some brush cleared out if possible. If some of it might be dead wood, you can knock over or something, right?
Yeah, some of my buddies up north were talking about that, and they're like, man, they just want to go there with chainsaws and butcher the place, get it back to what it used to look like. But I'm not totally cool with that because like the First Nations people are still using it for powwows and stuff, and it's like their holy spot. So
yeah, it'd be up to them.
It's not cool to go in there with the chainsaw and just start cutting everything down.
No, you want to be welcome to come back many times, right?
Yeah.
And actually, they may want to do that themselves if you're able to really start showing them what some of their own history that might have likely been lost due to the Europeans coming over, right?
Yeah, no, I was lucky. The original professor that did the academic work on this Stonehenge site, I contacted him, and he said he's going to put me in charge, or not in charge, in contact with some of the other academic professors that are actually involved in First Nations history. So I should be able to get a little bit, yeah, I'll be able to get a little bit more academic information on the First Nation legends about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I guess I don't have a slide ready for this one. Oh, yeah. What I did is I put together a few videos, and I think I got one here of the Draco Stonehenge. Did you want to watch the video quick?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, let's have a look.
All right, I'll play that, and hopefully it comes up on the full screen here.
So is that stone on the bottom right of the corner? Is that a part of the... Oh, that's okay. But yeah, that was actually the best picture I saw before. That shows you that it's propped up, right? Like that is not a rock that fell there.
Yeah. Well, just to turn down the volume of the video a little bit so I can talk while the video is playing. No, basically this whole area was... it was like cleared out by the glacier. So a lot of the surrounding area is just flat, like this giant wide open plain here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those big rocks would likely not been left, right?
Yeah, the academics or the geologists noted that it's a really peculiar site for them too, just the way it's set up.
It's nice that they are letting credence to all of that information.
No, it's really surprising how many academics are into this here. Yeah, I guess you're not getting any audio on your end, right?
No, I can't hear.
I think it's good that I got subtitles, so I guess we don't really need to hear it.
It was kind of a whitewashed day too, eh?
Yeah. No, when I was up there, man, it was like snowing crazy. I only got brief periods where I could film.
That's a nice shot too. Gives you an idea of how remote it is up there.
Yeah. Now, off to the left there, you can almost see my house that I brought up there.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, I can't wait to have a look with my own eyes. And because you really, I mean, I don't know if it does that place have an energy to it.
Yeah, here, I'll just close this video here. I'll tell you about that. Oh, there we go. Now, basically, I did get some of the First Nations history already from the original academic research done on it, and that they told the Westerners that it was basically a hot spot where all energy is collected. So I was like, man, this place is supposed to collect energy. So we got some compasses and we started doing the test to see if it spun at all. And lo and behold, when we were putting the compass between some of these blocks, it did that thing where the compass needle just spins.
Mm.
So I was like, I came back with a regular compass and tested it because those were electronic compasses doing that. And I didn't really get the same results. But, well, yeah, the other thing is we had a radio on our trip. And we were listening to radio stations for the whole trip. And then when we got to the Stonehenge site, all of a sudden, all of the radio frequencies all went completely dead. All you could get was static on every channel. And it was only like a mile from where we were listening to like 10 stations.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the other thing, too, is like it's easy to test when you bring your cell phone there and you're like, can I get a signal? And it's like you step outside the Stonehenge and you're like, oh, I can get a great signal. Step into the Stonehenge, boom, it goes to emergency calls and you can't get a signal.
Yeah, that's
So,
another similarity too with some of these megalithic sites, right? They definitely
yeah.
they harness some type of energy. I've got an electromagnetic field detector too. I'd love to see if that thing goes off because that's when things get really exciting to me. When you
Yeah.
can start measuring it in a scientific manner, right? Like that's what I really like. So that sounds awesome to hear.
Yeah, like I'm kind of halfway in the middle. Like I like the paranormal explanations, but I also like the scientific data too. So I'm
Well,
not just out here looking for like paranormal stuff, but I'd like to get some hard research to back it up too. Huh?
Well, that's what I mean. And I mean, when I say electromagnetic field, that's just an energy field. And to me, I don't,
Yeah,
I have no idea what causes them. There are definitely anomalies that are always associated with these types of things. So
yeah,
it's just something to note, right? And at least it is a measurement in scientific terms.
yeah. No, and then what else was there? Yeah, I was just going to say that I really think the First Nations people are accurate or telling the truth when it comes to that being like an energy spot. Because I tried, like, have you ever heard of grounding before? It's basically like you walk around with bare feet.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I tried the grounding method there to see if anything strange would happen to me. And it's like, man, I started getting these weird images flashing in my eyes every time I tried to go to sleep after doing it. And it
Wow.
was like ancient symbols. And I'm like, this is messed. It's like I've never had anything like a vision or like seeing weird things like that. So I don't know if it was just because I was really tired on the trip and or if there really was something to the grounding method. And if you walk around in this spot in bare feet, it starts to affect you.
That's cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of data that shows that grounding is something that the ancients practiced regularly, right? Most of them didn't
Yeah.
have shoes, so and it's a friend of mine at work. He always talks about how there's nothing better he loves more like running around in his bare feet, like outside. He's like he's 45 years old, right? Like, and he just
Yeah.
because he says he feels that like more of a connection. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was lucky when I was a kid. It's like, I guess back in the 80s, you didn't have to be like so careful and protective all the time. So I grew up most of my life always just wearing bare feet, even playing on train tracks. But yeah, I guess I'll go on to the next part. Next to the Draco Stonehenge, they have this gold coin monument set up on the road. And what this gold coin was made for was it was basically the gold that they got from all these surrounding mines. They eventually minted into the first gold coin, and they took a replica of that gold coin and they put it next to the Draco Stonehenge. So I'll show you what that coin looks like. Yeah, so this part up here is me standing next to the gold coin. And one of the weirdest things, I never in a million years would have thought of this connection, but I just had a guest on the Magi show like a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me all about the serpent and the bird mythology and stuff. And I like everything he was talking about connected to this image that's on the coin too. the serpent being slayed and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like the light beings gave me this coin with the symbol. And when I found a coin up north, it had the same symbology on it at this King Solomon's location. So I was like, holy crap, here's like another coincidence. Well, and the other thing too is, I guess I'll get into it shortly, but this image here is also referred to as the Thrace horseman.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Thrace is basically the ancient culture that used to live in Bulgaria before they got driven out and had to move to Ireland or whatever. But basically, these Thrace guys, they were involved with gold shipping a lot too. So it's like, isn't it interesting that they have this gold shipping coin image right next to this gold mine that could be King Solomon's gold? So it's like one coincidence after another and another. I guess it could be nothing, but I think it's part of the mystery.
Well, yeah, it depends on, like how many coincidences are there possible to be associated with one another, right? Like it doesn't, when they keep going, there's something.
No, I think the Freemasons in that town, like they have lodges up there too. I'm pretty sure a lot of them know about this history, but they don't like to talk about it just because it relates a lot to the Albert Pike thing and that whole situation. So they don't really talk about it. And maybe that's how this coin got minted like that.
Yeah.
It's basically a clue hidden in plain sight for people that already know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny too that the other side of the gold coin has this king on it, and I was kind of laughing that it's like I almost look like the king. We have the same haircut, same beard.
Which king is it? Does it say?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that would be King George.
It was King George. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he a Templar or a Freemason?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't really looked into his history much. I guess, was he like maybe the king of England during the 1800s? Maybe that's what it was?
Late 1800s, I believe it was. I don't know if it was Elizabeth's father or grandfather, but yeah, he was somewhere back there.
No, like this coin discovery was only made back in, October and August. So I haven't really had a lot of time to research everything with the coin, just basically scratching the surface of what it could mean.
Yeah, well, there's so much stuff to go through.
Yeah. Okay, and the next spot all along this list is a lodge called the Cheminis Lodge. And basically, if you're going to come up north and you need a place to stay, like my house isn't going to be ready for visitors, I think, for quite a while. So the Cheminis Lodge is one of the main places you're going to want to stay if you're not into camping. Like there's lots of places you can go camping for free up there. So if you're fine with camping, you can do that. Or if you want to stay somewhere, I highly recommend the Cheminis Lodge. And there's a part of this mystery connects to the lodge as well. Like I stood in front of the Cheminis Lodge to take this picture, and then I compared it to some Freemason artwork because I knew the Freemasons were involved in this mystery a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I noticed that the most popular art from the Freemasons, called From Darkness to Light, happens to relate to King Solomon. And it's got this mountain here. And you can see that it's like got people on the top, and they got like a biblical style ship. They've got a divider in the middle, a cave, and then a couple of streams running across. So I started to compare it to the picture that I took up north. And lo and behold, I found that the road pattern is basically the same pattern, up and winding. And then if you look off to the right of the Holy Mountain, that's where the Ottawa River connects to take ships back to the Holy Land. So I was like, okay, that connects with that holy ship that they got there.
Man, that is like, what an interesting geographical anomaly. Like it just stands out like a sore thumb, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's funny too, like you can see the edge of Mount Cheminis comes down to a lip there, sort of like a little hump. And you look, they put that same hump on the Freemason one. And then there's a cave that's on the top, or basically halfway up the mountain. It's really hard to access, and people are wondering if there's relics inside of it or not. And then that cave happens to match the location of where this cave is drawn on the Freemason map.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And it's funny, too, that the ancient offering table that's located on the top of Mount Cheminis is for stargazing. And if you look at the Freemason one, they put a star, or a shooting star, going down right to the spot where the offering table is. And it even has guys up there, so.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and I think that this offering table was basically the ancient Magi technology for stargazing that gave them access to the Akashic records. And I noticed that the Freemasons put like this biblical, or not biblical, but like some sort of like all-seeing eye up here and like the kingdom of God sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if that was their way of saying that they knew that it connected to the Akashic records as well. Oh, and the other good one too, is I almost missed this one. Yeah, on the Freemason one, they have a crack going down the center of the mountain, and they put this divider mark in the picture. And then if you look at Mount Cheminis, it's got the same thing, a giant crack right down the middle. So I don't think that that's a coincidence either.
That is awesome.
I've been lucky, like over the years, I've made some friends with Freemasons, and a lot of them don't agree with my work, but there's some of them that love it, and they said that I got to keep doing it and stuff. So I guess there's going to be some people that agree with the theory and some don't, and I'm sort of still caught halfway in the middle too. It's like a lot of this stuff seems too hard to believe, especially when you're caught in the middle of it, right?
Well, and then, you know, like the whole order is whatever they get their hands and fingers into is they try to represent the symbolism of their artwork in the architecture and in the layouts that they put on, because they're always the ones that are in control of the roadways and, you know, like the city planning or town planning and all that stuff.
Like Washington, D.C., we looked at
exactly,
earlier.
that's right, yeah. And in Philadelphia is like that, and in pretty much all the major European cities, because throughout time, the Masons, you know, you look back, the Masons were the ones who had the power, kind of, because no one could ever have a structure that would last without them.
Yeah. No, they were the gatekeepers, so to speak, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Now, then some skeptics have said like this picture doesn't really align because it's got water on the Freemason version going across the road. And if you go up there, I can show you up north, water does flow underneath this road. They just built the road over it. It's actually a creek called Bear Creek. So even the water going under it matches.
That's really cool.
Okay, what is the next one I got here? Oh yeah, and this is basically just showing like this road that goes from the lodge to the sacred mountain is this road up here. So just to give you an idea that if the Freemasons were going to pick a road to put in their artwork, it would almost make sense to draw the road that was located between the Stonehenge and the offering table, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and the other wild thing too, I don't know if we can make it out here too much. The Larder Lake actually has the image of a shaman holding up one of those magic bags that we see with the Anunnaki all the time, built right into the shore. So some people think that that's just a coincidence too, but I noticed that like in a lot of cases that nature seems to have the mysteries that we're trying to solve built right into the architecture of the planet itself. So I don't think like shamans went there and formed the lake. I think it's more the creator did it.
That's interesting. That the
yeah. And then one of my friends, JJ, she showed an image that she got from the museum in Mexico, and then I compared it to the one in the lake just to see if we had any correlations. And it was so weird that when I was looking at the lake image, I was like, there's something weird by his nose, and I can't find a match for it. Then I look at the South American one. Oh, he's got a nose piece coming right down to his.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it almost looks like he has a mohawk here. That's kind of a weird feature. And then you look at the picture from South America, he's got that weird mohawk type helmet on.
Yeah.
Even with a bun on the back, like a circle. And he's got it too, right?
That is pretty neat.
So I don't know, this is probably the most controversial part. Like some people aren't into the idea that shapes can be found in nature, like as above, so below theories. So to each their own. It's like this definitely isn't the best part of my evidence, but I just decided to include it because I think it's kind of neat.
Yeah, definitely, because in theory, you know, who knows how they were getting around back there. A lot of things that they were building really was only visible from the air. So. Yeah. And I mean, maybe this is how they got there. Maybe that's part of how they were able to find that place.
Now, what I started to realize here too is that it seems like this site up north, with all this ancient stuff going on, has connections to ancient stuff in South America. So I'll get into those connections a little bit shortly. Let's see what we got next. All right, so we covered the lodge. All right, so it'd be the Holy Mountain next. Maybe I got another video that I made of what the mountain looks like in 4K resolution. Should I play that one so people can get an idea?
Yeah, for sure. Let's have a look at that thing. It's pretty cool.
All right, let's see. I just got to remember what scene I put it in here. Let's try this one. Oh, come on. Yeah, sorry, I got the video playing, but didn't start at the beginning. I want
So you went up there, made an offering.
Just 1 second here. I'm just gonna try. For some reason, it doesn't want to let me stop the video. Oh, there we go. So I'm just gonna play the video again a little bit from the start because it didn't start at the beginning.
Okay. Yeah, it's really neat to see these sites from across the world that are starting to look a lot very similar.
Yeah. Off to the left there is the Cheminis Lodge. Now we're getting like a look from above of what the mountain looks like. Yeah, so that zoom there is basically showing the Draco Stonehenge, how close it is. You don't see it. Awesome.
I wonder too if some of that dirt had been cleared away from below the stream or whatever that comes out
Yeah.
of the spout there. I wonder if there's any other modifications down in there.
Yeah, I guess I'll just get back to explaining it. Whoops. No, like your question before is you're asking if I did any sacrifices when I was trying this offering table. Well, it's like I'm not into like animal sacrifices or that kind of thing. So the sacrifices that I tried was basically fasting and the other types of sacrifice that the First Nations people use.
Oh,
But
sorry. No, I didn't mean to make you think that. I said offering. I didn't.
okay.
I didn't
No,
mean offering life.
no, I'm glad you brought it up though too, because people debated whether or not this even is an offering table. And the First Nations people have a history that this is a place for sacrifice.
Oh,
So
really?
it goes way back in their history also.
Oh, wow.
And the worst part of it is what was it, the 1970s? There was actually a body of a man found on the top of this Mount Cheminis, and he was butchered in some sort of occult sacrifice manner too.
Oh,
Yeah, so the cops never managed to solve the case, and the weirdest part of it, they said, was that no one was ever reported missing. So whoever it was that got butchered up here wasn't from like a local person or whatever. Eh?
or they were willing participant.
Well, it's weird. It's like we just did a radio show. Like I do radio shows on CKWR, and one of the shows we did was on animal or what is it, cattle mutilations.
Yeah.
Now in that cattle mutilation episode, we talked about how in some cases people were actually butchered in the same way. So I was wondering, wouldn't it be weird if it was like the Anunnaki or the UFOs that were doing some sort of like mutilation to a person, and it was them that left the body up there, not like a murderer?
Yeah, and it wasn't. Yeah, they read into it a little bit.
So I don't know what to make of that. And it's like, yeah, I feel really bad for like the people who lost a relative in that situation, but it's like,
Yeah.
just brought it up because people are trying to argue with me and saying that there's no sacrifice history at all in this place and that I'm just making it up. Well, it's definitely not the case that I'm making it up. There's a huge history of sacrifice here.
And going back into all the other cultures too. I mean, anytime they had elevated ritualistic site, it was there to worship and for all of their purposes. So it definitely
Yeah.
would make sense if they were doing that.
No, and it was really neat too that the shape of this mountain, I never noticed it, is basically like a witch's cauldron. And then I dug into the history of witches' cauldrons a bit, and it dates back to that Sumerian bag that you always see the Anunnaki guys
Oh,
carry.
yeah.
So isn't it funny that the mountain looks like that bag, and then there's the shaman and the actual image of the lake that has holding up the same bag too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's another thing that could just be coincidence, but we're starting to get a good pile of coincidences going.
Yeah.
Now, and then they talk about, what is it, the First Nations mention that they also recognize a spot for shamans to go up here, and that it was a place for healers as well. And I've gotten mixed views when I climb the mountain. Some days I climb it and I get like really great feelings where I'm feeling euphoric and I have like tons of energy, feeling really positive. In other cases I've climbed to the top, I got really bad vibes, almost like the hair standing on the edge of your body sort of thing. So it seems like it's a place where good and evil can occur. Oh yeah, and then I was kind of laughing too. It's like the two pillars that are so common with Freemasonry. Isn't it funny how the mountain's almost designed or divided in half to look like two pillars? So I guess that'd be another case where it's like the creator might have put clues into the geography of the planet, or maybe it's just a coincidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting.
All right, so here's a close-up picture of what the offering table looks like on the top of the mountain there. And it was neat when I was on a trip with some friends back in, August. We stopped by the Raw Museum, like the Royal Ontario Museum. And they had a bunch of these same offering tables right in the Toronto Museum, so I could compare them. So that was kind of neat that I found out that they were roughly the same shape, and they basically had the same design, where a lot of these offering tables were known to be filled with liquids, and no one's really sure why they were filling them with liquid. Some people think that it was blood that they were filling them with, or if it was water. One of my theories is that they were using mercury, but maybe we'll have time to get into that. Right, so basically what we got here in Canada is like the Stonehenge site and the offering table close to each other. So I was wondering, the Stonehenge in England, does it have any correlation to offering table shapes as well? And then lo and behold, if you look at a computer rendering of what Stonehenge looks like intact, it's almost the same shape and design as an offering table. You can make out that that's Stonehenge in the middle there.
Yeah, they always wondered too what the purpose of the ditches were. So
Yeah.
maybe it was maybe they would run water in there, and then also water is known to be, carry a lot of energy as well.
Yeah, that makes me wonder, maybe they flooded the entire Stonehenge and made it into a giant offering table. I don't know. That's kind of an interesting idea.
Well, it also even thinking back to like Atlantean times, concentric circles, rings of water.
Yeah. No, we'll talk a little bit about Atlantis shortly too. I got some slides ready for that. There's actually a connection to this place with Atlantis that people aren't probably going to believe until they hear it, or even maybe not after. No, basically, I took the offering table shape and compared it to other structures around the world, not just Stonehenge. And it started matching places all over, like the Pyramid of the Sun in South America, Göbekli Tepe is the same shape, the Ziggurat of Ur is the same shape, Solomon's Temple is the same shape, and that's another Solomon clue there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the pyramids in Egypt, I guess, what was that one? Khafre, not sure how to pronounce that. Yeah, and then the same friend of mine that was helping with the research, he showed me that shaman picture from Mexico there. She mentioned that the Egyptians had the offering tables that were the same. And if you zoom in onto the Egyptian version of the offering tables, they often put Anubis on it. He's wearing an apron sort of thing, and he's like filling it with a bag.
Yeah.
So then after my friend showed me that picture, I'm like, man, I really got to go through my slides and see what I look like when I was filling it. And I was like, man, here's me standing next to Anubis, and the way my hat is shaped is almost the same as Anubis's nose.
Yeah.
The jacket that I'm wearing is about the same length. I'm filling the offering table in the same manner. And I was like, why the heck am I doing so many things that are similar to what Anubis was doing? And that's about the same time my aunt contacted me, and she's like, we've actually had this ancient Anubis amulet in our family for like, I guess, a really long time. And she hadn't told me about it before. And she figured now was a good time to tell me. And I'm like, well, no kidding. It's like here I've been in contact with an Anubis amulet my whole life, And I ended up doing all this research up north that turned out to be some of the stuff that Anubis was doing. So I was like, that's a pretty weird coincidence, huh?
That's pretty neat.
No, and I guess if I should jump into the Anubis material yet, or maybe I'll save it a little bit later in the show. Let's see. Yeah, so one of my theories basically was that when the ancients were using these offering tables, what they were doing was filling it with liquid, and they were doing that magi stargazing. I don't know if you've heard of stargazing before, like the magi stuff.
Little bits and pieces of it. Yeah, I've never studied it very deep, but I'm aware of it, definitely.
Yeah, basically what it is the ancient magi, the guys from Mesopotamia, they were into stargazing. And some of the most famous stargazing they did is the Jesus story. The wise men or the three magi used stargazing to find Jesus' birthplace. Mm. And then the academics that were looking at that were arguing and saying that if a star was in the sky acting like a lighthouse, pointing the direction where to go, it just wouldn't line up properly with the whole biblical story, right? So my theory on this is that the star isn't acting like a lighthouse pointing the direction where to go, but it's more of like an advanced fiber optic network where starlight is basically giving you an internet connection to the universal internet, and that's how they're getting the information of where Jesus was. Or I guess we're going to get into it shortly, is where the Aztecs, they also used stargazing rituals when it came to finding the location to build, what is that city, Tenochtitlan.
Yeah.
So this ancient stargazing ritual stuff is actually pretty common all over the world. It's listed as being the source of where all the ancients got their knowledge, but a lot of people are still debating, like, where did the ancients get the knowledge from? And it's like, well, I guess they're just ignoring the whole stargazing part of it.
Yeah, they ignore anything that hasn't already been written down in a book from Oxford U or, some...
yeah.
That whole thing, anyway.
No, basically, how I really came up with this stargazing theory is one of those scrolls of the sacred tree from Asia that I showed at the beginning of the show was like a near identical match for the ones that I was finding in Assyria or Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
But I was puzzled, and I'm like, is this sacred tree thing a real object, or is it like just a symbol that means something else and it's not actually a real object? So I happened to find out that in Japan it is a real object, and they actually still have it in a museum. So we're able to, well, we can't go and look at it because it's off limits to the public, but they stored in like the basement of the museum somewhere. And how it breaks down to is these sacred trees are actually made of three separate objects merged together. And one is a jewel, the other is a sword, and then the last one is a mirror. And I was like, okay, if the mirrors or the reflections from these pools were really giving you the access to the Akashic records, do we have evidence for it here? And it's like, oh, look, it even says that the mirror was used to gain wisdom. So how would you use a mirror to gain wisdom other than that, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny too, because this mirror technology has been like, even in what you call it, like Hollywood, Disney did the magic mirror on the wall thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of occultists have known about this mirror and stargazing stuff for a long time. They even put it into our movies and stuff when we were growing up. And what is it here? Oh yeah, here's the slide basically explaining how the Akashic records works with mirrors. It's like even today when you go and you look up at the stars, a lot of people look at the stars and they're like, there's almost something that you should be getting from looking at the stars, but people can't figure it out. They're just fascinated by looking at them. And it doesn't seem to matter how long you stare at them, you're not going to connect to the Akashic records, right? But then I found out that, have you ever done work with crossover cables and computer networking?
Very limited, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll explain it basically as when you're setting up a computer network, a lot of times you'll use a regular cable and you can plug it in from one computer to the other and it'll work. But some computer networks are set up that you need a crossover cable. And basically what that means is you got to plug the cable into a computer on one end, but you have to reverse it or mirror it so that when it plugs into the other computer, the mirrored signal is the one that's actually detected. So I was thinking, wow, that's exactly what the mirror is doing with the starlight. It's inverting it or mirroring it, and then it becomes a usable signal. So
Mm.
if you stare at the reflection of these stars, you can connect to the universal internet. But if you just look at the star, it's not going to happen because the network isn't designed that way.
That's interesting, yeah.
And then I figured out too that there were special stars that the ancients were trying to tell us to look at when it came to this stargazing, and it was basically Orion's belt. And the three pyramids of Egypt, the pyramids in South America, they're all in the shape of Orion's belt. And the reason for that is that Orion points at Sirius star, and the Sirius star is like even really popular today, right?
Yeah.
Like they got that satellite network named after it and such.
Well, it's pivotal. Almost all the ancient civilizations have some representation of it.
Yeah. No, so I was thinking, well, this is pretty wild that Sirius is the star. I was like, why would they choose it? And for an internet connection. And then I found out that Sirius is actually like what, the brightest star or second brightest in the sky. So that was another reason they would have picked it, is because it had the strongest connection.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always something that is high on my list of interest when I'm looking into a new culture or something. Is like right away is what astronomy level were they at? What type of is it represented in their archaeology? And if so, which areas of the skies were of areas of interest to them then? And and it almost always it has something to do with Sirius or the Pleiades or something, right in that area. So
Yeah, it seems like the same constellations keep coming up no matter what part of the world you go to.
yeah.
The skeptics will argue and say those are just the most distinctive ones, but I looked into the pyramid aspect of it because I was thinking everyone's trying to figure out the Great Pyramid of Egypt and what those mystery shafts were for. And I was like, well, is it a coincidence that those shafts happen to point at Sirius?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like it's almost like that was the internet connection for the Great Pyramid, and that solves the mystery of the shaft. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Was that an information network? And even as a silicon based structure, it's not it's not out of the realm of possibility to have been able to carry and send information for sure on a massive scale.
Yeah, and then when I was checking it out too, I was like, well, we got the Draco constellation next to this offering table, and lo and behold, the shaft on the other side of the pyramid, guess what constellation it points to? But the Draco constellation. So I don't know if it's just another coincidence, but I don't know. I guess it could be, but
well, I mean, it would definitely seem to lend to being intent.
yeah. No, it was almost like the ancients' way of saying that there was more than one star you could connect to for the internet. Basically, like how today we switch servers. You might want to use this server. You might want to use a different server to connect. They could connect via the Sirius server. Or they connect to the Draco server. Basically, the same principle.
And I wonder too if it, even at that level, translating into some type of a 3 or 4 dimensional map for them to be able to navigate between the other places that they've settled or places of interest or whatever's going on out there for real, right?
Yeah. No, I was wondering that too. It's like, if this is an ancient internet, what the hell kind of browser are they going to be using? Like, not expecting Google or Chrome or something to open up is when I start stargazing, right? But then I started wondering, I'm like, what like human equivalent would we have of a web browser? I was like, wait a minute, dreams, right? Like, people are always trying to figure out what dreams are for, and it's like it almost seems like some sort of like other realm that's communicating with us or whatever, right?
Yeah, and that state between consciousness for sure. And even now, there's a lot of more science coming out with being able to pick up how emotions through some type of fields, and I guess it's every life force contains this stuff. So we technically we should all be able to access this information, and a lot of people are theorizing now that animals already have access to this information, giving them that's why they're all vacate areas before tsunamis, and it basically gives them that instinct that we call instinct. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's them being able to see a bit into the future or the past.
Yeah. No, the weirdest part is like after I tried the universal internet like stargazing ritual to see if it would have any effect on me, sort of like the grounding did, but it was weird. As soon as I went to sleep after doing the stargazing, my dreams drastically changed. So I was like, that's actually how one of the ways I found the spot up north to begin with is my grandma that we talked about earlier in the show. She was a dream psychic in Europe. And I often dream the future, like almost any time something dramatic is going to happen in my life, the night before I'll have a dream giving me similar images to what's going to occur the next day. And then after I tried the universal internet, I started dreaming something totally different. And it was like a repeating dream over and over again. And it led me to find Spirit Island or Manitoulin Island. I don't know if you've heard of that island yet. Or...
Oh, yeah. I've been there many times as a young boy.
All right. That's good. So when we talk a little bit later, you'll have an idea about what Manitoulin Island's all about. Like I had never heard of Manitoulin Island before I had this dream change. All I kept dreaming about was taking a ferry somewhere. I was like, oh, isn't it interesting after that I found out that Manitoulin Island has a ferry to get there. What is it called? The Chichiman?
Chichiman, yeah. From Tobermory.
Yeah, and then I checked too. I'm like, Manitoulin Island, why is it sending me there? Does it have something to do with why my dreams changed and stuff? And then that's when I found out that Manitoulin Island has legendary Dreamer's Rock, the most famous spot for shamans to come from all over the world to try to dream at this spot and communicate with the creator.
Yeah, it's a pretty spectacular area there. Definitely.
Yeah. No, like even Dreamer's Rock now is so sacred that you're not allowed to take pictures there. So if anyone's going to that spot, don't break the rules and be taking pictures. Some people already have and posted all over YouTube, so you don't have to do it even if you're tempted to.
Yeah. I've lost visual of you.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I can't see you anymore here.
All right, what I'll do is I'll just try resetting my webcam here. I actually had this happen a couple times before while doing the show, and I found a way to get it to fix.
I didn't want it happened a couple minutes ago. I didn't want to interrupt you, and you didn't seem to be showing any new slides yet. So
yeah, it's no problem. Basically, I'll just switch it over to something else, and then switch it back, and that should correct it once it's done. Am I back now?
No. It's just frozen at that screen. I wonder if it's on mine here. I don't know if I can reset.
Yeah, if you want, I can give you a quick call back on Skype. That usually resets it too.
Yeah, okay. Let's do that here quick, and I'll...
All right, cool. Yeah, just to make sure that it's working.
Yeah.
That'll be good. It'll give me a second to catch my breath too.
Okay.
All right, so hang on.
So we're just going to wait for him to get back on here. That definitely reset my screen here, so obviously. You should be calling me back anytime. Thank you all so much for watching. There we go. All better.
All right, cool.
Beauty.
Yeah, it's nice. I just
and probably got about another 10 minutes. Can we do part 2 to this? Because obviously we're nowhere near done going through this.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We're almost coming up to, what, the 2-hour marker?
About an hour and 15 right now.
Okay.
But,
yeah, I've got no problems. What I could do is maybe just finish up the tour part of it, and we'll save the Manitoulin Island, the invention, and the Anubis Amulet for part 2.
Yeah, sounds good, man. That's awesome.
All right,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. No, it's probably for the best too, because this is a lot of information to take in all at once.
Yeah, and we don't want. It'll give people who are watching a chance to go out and look into it on their own, and the next time we have we're talking, then they can kind of be on the same page.
Yeah. Now, one of the other weird parts too is I started to debate like if water or blood was really the best liquid for stargazing. And I started to recall that the ancients, like in pyramids in Asia or in South America, they kept finding tons of mercury. I don't know if you've heard about mercury in pyramids before.
Yeah, more specifically the Chinese emperor, and then also they found it in the Teotihuacan, I think.
Oh, really? Yeah. So then it turns out when I checked to see if mercury was actually good for stargazing, I looked it up and I found out that the best telescopes in the entire world use mercury as a pool to reflect light.
Hmm.
So I was like, maybe this stargazing ritual solves why the ancients were so fascinated with Mercury.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, no doubt,
Mm.
because they and you know, Mercury wasn't. It's not easy to get in that state, so they would have had to really work hard to get as much as they were dealing with at that time too.
Yeah. Now, I did a brief check too to see if I could find out like if there's any evidence of the ancients talking about mirrors and reflecting and contacting the Anunnaki like over an ancient universal internet. And I found out that in reliefs in Egypt, they showed Thoth standing next to a giant mirror.
Yeah,
And then they put the eye on there as a symbol of protection. So I was thinking that eye on the symbol of protection is actually like the oldest antivirus symbol in the world for the universal internet.
that's pretty cool. Because, yeah, and though he's always pictured with a mirror, either beside a mirror or holding a mirror, even a lot of the times.
Yeah. And then I digged some more to find out about the winged disc, like we talked about on the top of the sacred tree. And lo and behold, that's what the winged disc symbol actually is a giant mirror with the Anunnaki guys standing in it.
Yeah,
So I was like, holy crap, here's another coincidence. And yeah, it turns out that like these Anunnaki guys were holding shamanic plants. And then I found out that the mushrooms growing next to the offering table up north, they're shamanic mushrooms.
wow.
Yeah, so there was another connection. Maybe that the Anunnaki didn't get here in spaceships after all, but they're coming here from other dimensions, and it was the shamans who were contacting them.
Yeah, I mean, I've given into some of the paranormal research and stuff that I've done. There's a lot of evidence that, to me, suggests that that's more likely. It may not be ghosts, so to say, but it could be like interdimensional beings, right? Like
Yeah.
different
Now here's a.
accessing things.
I was just gonna say, sorry. Here's a picture of the magic mushrooms that I took growing next to the offering table.
I've
So
lost
this
your
is.
video again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's okay, I guess, if I'm not really in the video for this part, right? Can you still see the images though?
No, it froze on the mirror,
Oh, okay.
or the was it the giant space telescope.
Oh, it froze there. Huh? All right. Well, maybe that's freezing a little bit too much because the recording's going on a bit long. You think, or?
I have no idea. My recording's doing it's fine. It just started. That's weird. Can you maybe we just let's freeze it here, kind of bookmark where we're at, and then we'll pick up from here when we get back into it again. And
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, we
okay.
can figure out all the technical issues and get it working again.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, man. I had no idea. Like, we got to figure this out too, because that's kind of it worked fine all the way through, right? So we'll figure it out.
Yeah. No, I find sometimes when you run it for quite a while, it'll start acting up and just rebooting everything. But if we're gonna reboot, we might as well just split it up and do a part 2 episode. Right?
Okay, yeah, that sounds great, man. Leland, thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining me and sharing a lot of this. I know it's tough. You're really putting yourself out, sharing this stuff, and I know that you've probably have been the brunt of some dumbasses out there, like I often am, just for pondering these types of things. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate you're willing to share yourself and the information that you've been working on. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. And thanks for having me on the show.
All right, buddy. Well, we'll talk soon, okay?
Cool. All right. Sounds good.
All
Take
right.
care.
See ya. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for being with us here. I will be posting this very shortly for all of you to enjoy. I really look forward to getting part 2 posted. So thanks again, and stay tuned for more from Leland.